and Washington, D.C. in the afternoon, but here it's 1:53 in the morning. And a lot of things to talk about. I've been watching and talking with people in various countries, Nepal, India, United States, all over the United States, Europe, various places here. I'm in Thailand, and hello to my friends in Hong Kong. Been communicating with a lot of Hong Kongers today. They're still fighting out there on the streets. Are unbelievable. I mean, the insurgency is as strong now as it ever was. They've diminished the size of the actual protest, but the energy is as high as ever. Of course, I was denied entry on my last trip back to Hong Kong on February 5th, and so the Communist Party doesn't like me around. So I was kicked out of Hong Kong on February 5th. If they were smart, they would have kicked me out earlier. Anyway, April, let's say, is the month of isolation, the April of isolation. President Trump, you may know, has said that, he doesn't expect people back in church on Easter, which was nonsense to begin with. And although some preachers in Louisiana and Florida have been saying, we're just going to keep right on going to church. And I immediately emailed a couple of my friends in Florida. I was like, that guy's going to get arrested, I'll bet. And then, by the way, Maddie just called. Maddie is feeling better with her potential bout with Xi's disease in Denver. But Maddie called to say how she's feeling. And she mentioned that an arrest warrant did just go out for the preacher in Florida named Rodney Howard Brown. He's got one of those mega churches, which makes mega bucks. And he must think he's above everything. For instance, the law and viruses, which viruses will chump him out. He should be arrested. Of course, he'll come back and say, we're just being, persecuted, and they made me drag the cross all the way to the jailhouse. Just shut up. You know what I mean? You get tired of those guys. I grew up in Florida, so I grew up around a lot of really excellent, churches and that sort of thing, and some total whack jobs like him that are just like, yeah, everybody should come to church and, and get infected. Hey, that's one way that, Darwin and God come together at the same time under the same and sing out of the same hymnal, right? Darwin says, turn to page whatever in your hymnals where Darwin sings in our church, because tell you what, you all get together and start hugging and kissing, and you're all going to go to be seeing each other's funerals. Yeah, just ridiculous. Well, I hope they arrest him. Let me see if hey, in Missouri, I hope the sound is good. You can see I moved. Hey, Jamie, I hope everything's good up in Canada. Let's see, Cincinnati. All right, hello. And 5 by, good, Tony saying. No. May I give you a Skype call? It says Republic of Liberty. Not now. Let's see. Howdy from Buffalo, Wyoming. Hello from Utah. All right, let's keep going. Now, if you may have seen some of the footage of people streaming to Florida from New York and other places, like Governor DeSantis, he's the Florida governor, putting highway patrol out on the border of Alabama, because New Orleans, if you look at the map, heck, I got a map right here. There's Florida. That's where I'm from, right there, actually. Should have pulled a pencil out. There we go. We'll use this pen. I'm from right there, Winter Haven, Florida, right? So this is Florida. It's shaped like a pistol here, right? And there's the border right there with Alabama. And right over here, New Orleans is probably about to get smashed New York style. And they want to squirt out to Florida. Now, we got all these people from New York driving down as well and coming to Florida. And a lot of the New Yorkers live over on this side, actually. And on the East Coast. A lot of them live on the East Coast. But they have homes all over the place. For instance, in my hometown in Winter Haven, Florida, which is why I got to meet people from all over the world when I was growing up, because they come to our town, and which was cool for me. I learned a lot. And so, right up on this border with Georgia, they had miles and miles of, I saw videos of traffic jams, because I've been across that border like hundreds of times. There's a check station there. Apparently they were checking people or whatever. And big problem, because people are squirting to Florida, just like when Wuhan had the problems. They squirted from Wuhan to other parts of China and then over to Hong Kong and down to Indonesia, over to the United States and all over the place. So likewise, in Italy, in the northern part of Italy, when things went bad, they started squirting to other parts of Europe, for instance, southern part of Italy, which will then have, this is highly predictable. It's happening in India right now, where they're squirting to other parts of India and then up to Nepal. There's hundreds of thousands of Nepalese that work in India. And so it's going to, this is the way things go. And big pandemics like this, famines, that sort of thing, they typically cause huge demographic shifts very quickly. And this is why our border protection on the southern border of the United States is so important. For those of us who study this sort of thing and realize what can happen, it's not the day-to-day leakage that might get you. Well, that'll get you too. But also something big happens and a huge wave just comes. And that can happen here in Thailand. I tell my Thai friends, but they're like Americans. A lot of them don't get it. A lot do and a lot don't. Most don't. Like most Americans don't get it. It seems like most Americans don't realize that suddenly things just happen and then millions of people move. For instance, let's look at where I am here, and we'll talk about India. I got this map up. I might as well use it now, right? So look, that's India, right? Craziest place on earth. I love India. I spent 10 months there. Up to the north is Nepal, right? Nepal. Over here is Bangladesh. I've been there too. I spent a year in Nepal, went looking for tigers over there. And then here's Burma, Myanmar, right? And then I'm right here in Thailand. I'm in northern Thailand, right here. And that's China, right? So that's, I live right, where do I live? Right here, in the northern part of Thailand. Well, look, if there's big famines here, which really can happen, there'll almost certainly be famines as well in Bangladesh if things really go badly. Look at the population density in Bangladesh. It is massive. And India and Bangladesh have been having problems for years because of this. There's a lot of violence there. And so they can easily squirt out to Myanmar and be right here in Thailand, lickety-split, just like can happen over on the other side over here, right here. Squirt from right down over here to right on up through there, and boom, there you go. And Brian Kolfaja and others have been trying to plug that for a while, but listen, without serious support, it's just not going to happen. And then suddenly, boom, it's on. And so, and then millions of people can flood over your border, and there's not a thing you can do about it unless you're willing to shoot them. I mean, because you're not going to be able to push them back unless. And so these kinds of things happen all the time. They're not like every once in a while. They constantly happen. Every time there's famines or anything like that. Now, we've always had this economic osmosis between Mexico and the United States, or always for, in my lifetime. But also we need a lot of it because Mexicans come and they work on our farms and we cooperate together in many mutually beneficial ways. It's not like Americans hate Mexicans. I think Mexicans are some of the best people in the world. But at the same time, we do have very different cultures and ways of life, and we need strong borders for both of us. Yeah, if things go really bad, you might have the opposite going on. You might have Americans going down to Mexico. Good luck with that, Mexicans. All right. Let's keep going, and then I'm going to take as many questions as I can. But also that brings up the xenophobia thing. We're starting to see this xenophobia all over the place. Chinese between Chinese. You've seen so much stuff that was translated during the Wuhan exodus, where people, for instance, in Beijing were threatening to kill people from Wuhan if they come up to Beijing, that sort of thing. But since it was Chinese and Chinese, you can't say racist, but then likewise, Chinese going over to Hong Kong, and Hong Kongers are like, get out, you know what I mean? And some people actually did call racism at that point, even though they're Chinese. So there you go. There are different cultures though. And so, I mean, it's very interesting when there's no difference in coloration or the way people look, and people, so actually you can see like when I talk about strong borders, you'll see trolls come on that look like 50 Cent Army trolls, like, which means like Chinese information operators, because they'll use all the trigger words like bigot, racist, xenophobe. They'll use like a long series of those words. And when you see a long series of those words, like if somebody accuses you of being a bigot, a racist, xenophobe, and just a string of these trigger words, then click through to their profile. And almost in all cases, you'll find, hey, that doesn't look like a legitimate profile, actually. It looks like it's like very new and, no friends, that sort of thing. So that's quite common. And by the way, speaking of viruses, my restreaming platform is called Restream, and they had a notice that they're under DDoS attack. They're under attack right now. And so a lot of my streams still don't seem to go out to my YouTube pages. I see one YouTube coming here. Paula Beth is saying, hey, Michael, I'm back in Boston after leaving India last month, self-isolated. Wish I was back in Chiang Mai. See you next winter. Hey, Muffy. Hey, Muffy. I hope everything's good over there. I hope you really enjoyed India. India is something else. If you've not been to India, it's kind of difficult to explain, actually. It's just a different world. Okay, let me continue, and then I'm going to take as many questions as possible. I don't know if I'm going to be on the John Batchelor show in the morning. I just emailed John. Of course, John's up in New York, and one of their engineers got the virus more than a week ago, and they're in New York City, so it's things are going on. So I emailed to John tonight about an hour or so ago, and I said, hey, I think I'm not sure how much people are interested in Thailand right now, because it's not hitting hard here right now, but we need to know what's going on in New York. And so he emailed back. He's going to email me in about 5 more hours or so and tell me if he wants me to come on. So just in case, I will go on the John Batchelor show, probably with Gordon Chang, if he wants me to come on. But I told him it's probably more people are probably interested in what's going on in New York at this moment. All right. So I think that's about all the things I want to say. Not a lot. I've been paying a lot of, I'll say a few other things, and I'll just answer as many questions as I can. But I want to say, this 30 days of isolation or whatever from President Trump, he's getting more serious now. The fact is, it's not going to be over in April. It's not going to be over in April, period. It's not going to be over in May. It's not going to be over in June, period. It's not. No chance. And, I don't use the no chance lightly. This is spreading around the world. It's still exponential. Maybe some drugs will come out, not vaccines in time, of course, but maybe some of these drugs that they're talking about, I'm not even going to mention them because I don't want to get into that, because I want to wait and see how this shakes out. I think you all know and President Trump have been talking about certain drugs. Let's see how they shake out first. But at the same time, they're not going to be available for everybody around the world, period. And this likely is going to kill tens of millions of people, this Xi's disease. Dr. Fauci mentioned that it could be 100 to 200,000 Americans, for instance. I would think we're going to be really lucky Americans if we get by with only 200,000 that die directly from the virus. Now, I think there's going to be so many more deaths come from this that are related but not directly. I think the only way that we're going to get any sort of accurate estimate will be way post facto, and it will be tallying up, for instance, death certificates of all causes. That it would be 2020 compared to 2000 and 19, 18, 17, and 16, and it'll be comparing against other years, actually, because we really need to add everything in, right? Not just the virus, because people can be putting in pneumonia, right? And when it was really kicked off by it could be something else. It could be a car accident, but you didn't get treated because the hospital beds are full. Or, so many of our doctors and nurses are so tired that they are, or sick. There is no doubt that thousands of our health workers are going to become infected, as are our law enforcement and military. And we really have to support them, everybody. And that includes here in Thailand, We're going to have to support the Thai army and the Thai police and the Thai doctors and nurses here, just like Americans and Germans and everybody else in Italy, of course. They're going to be tired. They're going to be getting infected. They're going to be dying. They are our soldiers. And we need to do everything that we can. I'm not a doctor or a nurse or a soldier or a policeman, but I can definitely help them. And so, I can help in whatever way I can help, and I will do it. And all of us need to first take care of yourself. First and foremost, always take care of yourself. Put your mask on, then put the child's mask on, and then start helping everybody else, right? So take care of self. Take care of what's immediately around you, and then, especially reaching out to, I see a report from India to be expected. A lot of Indian doctors and nurses can't even go home now because people don't even want them around because they think they might infect the apartment block or whatever. That's not xenophobia, obviously. That's virusophobia, right? And so likewise in many other places, I'm told, for instance, some of the doctors and nurses there in Hong Kong have to stay in hotels, right? They don't even go home. So they're staying in hotels alone. They're in Hong Kong. They might be like 1 kilometer or they might be 300 meters from home, but instead they have to stay at a hotel. So this is what they're going through. And the restaurants are closed in those hotels. So the doctors and the nurses in Hong Kong need support big time because it's going to pick up there. It's going to hit Hong Kong. It's going to hit. And this is a sad part for South Korea and Taiwan and Hong Kong and Singapore, countries who, I called Hong Kong a country. These countries who have done well with this are still going to suffer greatly because of the rest of us clowns and most of the other countries in the world, including the United States, excuse me, who have truly behaved like tree monkeys on hash or something, right? I mean, it's unbelievable how we've handled this. So countries like, think about this. If you're South Korea and you have aggressively gotten on top of this and really done a lot of things to mitigate and contain through testing, and they can get tested in minutes in Korea, minutes, right in front of you. In the United States, it can go more than 10 days with no test results. Unbelievable. And so, excuse me, I'm not drinking coffee now. It's too late. But the fact is, these countries like Korea, who've done very well, Taiwan, who's done very well, Hong Kong, who's done very well to date, even though with the mainland Chinese coming over because of Carrie Lam, their, whatever you want to call her, their puppet from Beijing, who is their, I don't know what you want to call her, mayor. Anyway, their chief executive is what they actually call her. But have kept the borders open. But Singapore has done quite well as well. But the rest of the world, most of the rest of the world has not. Likewise, within the United States, I know my country, America, right? Listen, I grew up here, right? And then I was in the Army here. And then I was in the Army here. And then I was in the Army here. And I was in the Army here. And then I went to school here after the Army, right? And then I was in business here. And I lived there again. And I was in business here. You know what I mean? I've lived all over my country. I've been all over this bad boy, except for Alaska and one of these states up here. And I've been to Hawaii, I don't know, 10 or 12 times. I don't know, a lot. And, Hawaii is unbelievable. I've been all over America. I have a very good finger on the pulse. I was in the Army, and you meet a lot of people in the Army that are from all over the country and the world, for that matter. And I can just tell you, this 30 days of whatever, it's not going to work in America. It is not. In reality, I can see what's going to happen. It's just going to burn through America. You can lock down in one place, but this other place doesn't lock down. They're just letting the fire burn. So it's the same thing's going to happen to places like Korea, who are highly disciplined. They're just going to have to isolate their whole country, which they can do in a sense, by testing everybody that comes and goes, right? Test everybody that steps in that airport or on the ports, right? I mean, there are things that countries like, but the rest of the world still around them, they're partners in business and commerce and whatnot are like the United States. I mean, who's going to buy their televisions and whatnot when our economy is going the way it is? So in other words, what I'm getting to is, like, for instance, up here in New York, a lot of the New Yorkers were immediately squirting down to New Jersey, and the New Jersey governor's threatening them, like they're going to hunt them down, not kill them, of course. But I mean, so you've got all these different states that are going to want to throw up their own borders, right? But then you only need one town that doesn't do it, which there'll be a lot more than one town, or they don't do it well, or one state, and then the fire keeps going. This is where you don't have to be a scientist to see what's coming. I just know my country, and I know that you're not going to get, or in India, like you're not going to get everybody to do the right thing. And so you're going to have pockets of high discipline pockets, like, that live out in the mountains in North Carolina, maybe on some, just shut the gate sort of thing. And they'll probably be all good. And then you're going to have other things like these clowns going to church at the mega church in Tampa, Florida, and getting everybody infected. You're not going to contain it all in the United States without drastic action, which I've been saying since January and all through February. And now we're through March. This is 31st of March. And we're still not, even though President Trump is saying we're going to do this lockdown in April, it's not going to work. I know my country. You have to get draconian to make it work. Ground all flights. How many times have you heard me say ground all flights? We still haven't ground the domestic flights. There's still interstate travel going on all over the United States. So, they were talking about spring break, down here on the Atlantic coast of Florida. Remember that? Look at all these spring breakers are infecting the whole planet. Well, they're not helping, that's for sure. But who else is doing that? Churches, bars, movie theaters, everybody that's coming together like clowns. Everybody that's coming together. It's not just the spring breakers. They got the cameras on them because there's girls in bikinis and that sort of stuff. And, and we can, smash on them and go, look, it's terrible spring breakers are going to infect the universe. And in reality, it's all these things that weren't closed way back when. You know what I mean? There shouldn't have been any spring break. All the hotels should have been closed. I mean, that's it. What do you think? They're kids. They're like, 18, 19, 20 years old, 22 years old. They're just going to go down to spring break and chase girls or chase boys or whatever. So anyway, let's answer some questions here. All right, I'm looking at a couple things here, and then let's try to answer some questions. Tag your it viral. You mean cooties? Yeah, I mean, this is the biggest game of cooties in the world. If you don't know what cooties is a game that American kids play. I don't know if British or German kids play it. British kids probably play it because cooties, we call it cooties, like you're it. Or we'll say, I'm talking about when you're like 9 years old, right? It's a game that, you touch somebody and, they got cooties, right? Cooties is like you gave them this sickness, this disease, right? And actually, different countries have different ways of playing it. And none are coming to mind, but I know they do actually. But cooties, I think, may have come from, I think it's a Malay word from Malaysia. I think the British picked up that word. They picked up a lot of words from Malaysia. British did, and I think it means like lice, right? Something like that. But anyway, so it's a game that we play, cooties. So every American kid probably knows what cooties is. So that's why I was kind of semi-joking the other day that Boris Johnson got the cooties, right? Ewan is saying, what if chloroquine works? Well, that's a big deal. I mean, if it works, that's a huge deal. Obviously, that's a big, big deal if it works. I'm still going silent on that because I want to wait and see a little bit more data come in from different countries. I want to see different countries say it, not just one or two, because what I see from the United States, from the administration and others, they are desperate for good news. For instance, this $2 trillion, pay whatever it's going to be, which is obviously going to lead to serious inflation. Buy your food now. It's an investment. Trust me. It's like the food prices are not going to go down, and so and the value of your money is not going to go up. And so those two things going at once there. But they're desperate for good news, but because people like me who've really been around the United States, we see serious potential for real civil unrest, like real civil unrest with like huge casualties, right? And that's a very real possibility, which is one reason that a lot of us will never give up our guns, right? It's like, no way. We're not giving up our guns. And this is a perfect example of why right now. And a lot of slave mentality people, for instance, a lot of British, they're like, oh, we gave up our guns and whatever happened? Now you just get stabbed. How's that? And can't defend yourself. Right? There you go. Idiots. Anyway, bottom line is we see very serious potential for civil unrest with very high casualties. And so, and people like Steve Bannon clearly see this as well. That's why you see a lot of people going, look, we got to get some money in people's pockets to take the edge off of this. And, you know, we see these incremental things, you know, that are not going to work, you know, with ultimately on the much, much bigger picture, this virus is it's only a catalyst. I mean, we can survive the virus, no problem. If we just let it burn through, we would just take huge casualties. I don't know, maybe a couple million in America. I don't know. But if you just let it burn through, we would have a lot of dead people, but it would burn through probably pretty quickly if the scientists are right. And it would be really horrifically, it would be bad. But then maybe most of our economy would still be intact. But obviously, a better way would be more like the Korean way or the Singapore way, right? Aggressively jump right on its head, jump right on that virus and start doing massive testing. Everybody wear masks and all this. United States did it backwards. We're like, don't wear masks. You know, look, everybody should have masks. Have a fishing string full of masks. You know what a fishing string is? Anyway, everybody should have masks. But our country, our Surgeon General, unbelievable. Our top doctor in the United States, Jerome Adams, he's a naval officer, which is a disgrace, that he told people not to wear masks. You can't even make up that stuff. I mean, when history books are written about this in the future generations will be like, we'll never be stupid enough to do something like that. And my answer to that is, yes, you will. Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Because we already knew. We already knew what we needed to do to stop this. The knowledge is there. There's nothing more that needs to be discovered except the personality of this particular virus. But the scientists have already been through this so many times, even they can't count. They know what we needed to do. It was all there before us, and we didn't do it. And we didn't do it. All right, let's answer as many questions as we can. Cynthia Wood, Chris Madison gave some hope, 329 in his peak prosperity video. I watch his videos. He does a great job. I like him because he's a thoughtful man. And his skill stack is interesting because he comes from a medical background, but he's also an economics guy, or at least a investor. And so he's got more than one skill that he can mix together and come up with a totally separate skill, right? And that's what I try to bring to the table, my experience traveling around the United States in detail and the world, which brings another skill stack to, like, I understand that you're really not going to shut down the United States without draconian measures. We are not Japan. In Japan, listen, there's some countries like United States, Italy, they're just not going to look. If you want people to do a certain behavior in Italy, you just pass a law against it and everybody will start doing it. Italians like flaunt the law, right? They flaunt social order, which is one of the things that makes Italians so fun, actually, except at a time like this. At a time like this, that social order is no longer fun. It becomes an anchor, a big anchor. Whereas cultures like Japanese, they've got that high cultural discipline and they're just like mask up, they're like totally like soldiers, like mask, wash hands, and they got it under control. Well, I think Japan's actually going to get hit with it as well. Everybody's going to get hit. Nobody's going to really escape it, but we can control a lot about it, like the speed that it spreads and that sort of thing. But anyway, let me try to answer some questions. Jan Benning is saying Schwarzenegger was taking great measures for California, but Brown dismantled his efforts for major catastrophe. Yeah, a lot of Californians are going to have problems with their retirement. This is the problem set around this is so enormous. Like the economic side, the financial side, the political side. Famines will come out of this. I don't know where. I'm going to guess India is going to have some. Whoops, dropped my pen. But I'm going to guess on the subcontinent here, India. And also, there's no food security in Nepal. They don't have food security. And also, when prices, when they start having food short, remember, all these countries, too, are competing against each other, not just them, us. I mean, we're all in a global market competing against food. The United States has really great food security, and I believe Brazil does as well. But a lot of the other countries in the world actually don't. And everybody's going to be competing against each other for prices. Thailand's pretty good on food security. And so actually, but, when people offer bigger prices for food, you'll have smugglers, smuggling food out. For instance, the Thai government has banned the export of eggs recently. Interestingly, I had just gone and bought a bunch of eggs. I was like, you know what? I'll bet egg prices are going to go up, and I like eggs. So I bought a bunch of eggs, and then shortly after that, the egg prices went up because they started exporting them. Other countries were paying, because other countries like Malaysia and Indonesia and others are trying to build their stockpiles for obvious reasons because, just like we need to stockpile personally, so do states and countries, right? And so, interestingly, I want to bring up one more time something that preppers have known for a long. And remember, this prepper stuff isn't a bunch of imagination stuff that they make up in their heads. It's from generations and generations of experience. For instance, my friend in Thailand, Soy, she sent me photos today of these huge water reservoirs that her grandfather and her father made, who are from Chinese. They're originally from China, but she's Thai now. And somewhere culturally, way back when in China, they must have had some terrible droughts, I would imagine, because they built these huge water reservoirs, to store water. And so it was like, why? I often wondered why they did that. And then, back in January, I was like, get water, get food, get water, really stock up on everything. And because I know where this can lead. And so did obviously her grandfather, who probably maybe experienced something or he got it from previous generations. But this is normal stuff. And so you need to be prepared. And remember, other disasters and challenges like wars, they don't take a break during this. In fact, they can get worse. For instance, when hurricanes happen, it's going to be hard for people in the hurricane areas, this is all hurricane area, right? All up here and all here, smashed by hurricanes every year. All these places, get smashed. And so who's going to get smashed this year? I don't know, somebody. But they're probably not going to get the sort of recovery that they normally get. Like when Florida gets smashed, you'll see people coming in from all over the country coming to help. Or when New Orleans got smashed, you had a bunch of Cajuns rolling up in the Cajun Navy, everybody coming up with their airboats and John boats and fishing boats and everything else. Everybody coming to help in their big trucks and all that. And but what are you going to do when they can't afford the gas, or they're they've somebody in their family has died or something because of the fallout from the virus? We're not going to know we'll never know how many actually die as a result of this globally, but we'll be able to take some guesstimations in the United States or other countries that keep great records. I've suggested to some of my Indian friends that I want to see what is happening, for instance, along the Ganges River soon, because that's where a lot of people do their funerals, right? They either throw the bodies in the river or they cremate by that river or others. And you won't be able to hide that, right? And here in Thailand, if a lot of people are dying, then, there'll be cremations, a huge amount, or funeral home workers in the United cemeteries. If you start seeing, constant funerals, then you'll well, there's your clue, right? Or if you know somebody that is in the funeral business. Let me try to answer questions. Peter Michael Sullivan. Oh, I saw your question today, Peter. There's no way I can answer. There's just so much going on. You can see what time it is. It's 2:28 in the morning, and I only got on like about an hour ago. What conflict hotspot do I see flaring up? Well, India for sure. Around this general area. Potential famines in China. I don't know actually, but so many. There could be all kinds of unnamed conflicts in Africa. Certainly around different parts of Asia. There's so many wild cards that nobody knows. I mean, what's going to happen on the oil prices between Saudi and Russia and the United States? There's so much energy flying around. There's so many balls flying around at high speed that it's hard to know what bowling pins are going to start getting knocked down. But rest assured, the probability of famine is very high. It's just a matter of where, and it could be water shortages, and it depends also on how badly this disease unfolds. But right now it's looking pretty bad, actually. Will the chloroquine or something else work in the short term? I hope it does. Robert is saying, do I think Trump is getting bad advice? I would say he's an intelligent man, and I don't have access to getting briefings every day by the CIA and all those guys, and I can't just call up the Surgeon General and say, hey, what's going on? I can't just call up the top people at CDC and say, give me a briefing. And I've been saying since January, as have a few others like Chris Martenson and Steve Bannon. And, we just, with our education and our just watching what's going on, we were able to call it really early. And I think I'm almost sure that I was the first one saying ground everything, like ground. And, when President Trump finally cut off, flights from Hubei province, which was tantamount zero, nothing, meant nothing really. Others were like, oh, look what he's done. He's taken definitive action. I'm like, he didn't do anything. He shut one window of a 40-story hotel, and left all the other windows open. I mean, it's ridiculous. All flights coming into the United States should have been stopped. And at this point, all flights within the United States should be grounded. But at this point, I'm not sure what difference it makes, actually. I mean, you can change the casualty rate. You can, but in reality, it's basically the fires are everywhere, right? And now it's going to overwhelm the system, even in the United States, much less around various European countries. Here in Thailand, I'm sure is going to get overwhelmed. And there you go. Let's see. Let me try to answer a few questions here. I've basically said everything that I came on to say other than answering questions now. Hello, greeting from Thai people in Ireland. Well, I hope you're okay up in Ireland. And I'm sure Irish people and Thai people get along quite well, because I always hear Thai people who go to Ireland seem to always love it, and Irish people I know love Thai people, so I'm sure you guys are having a good time up there. But you shouldn't be out at the pubs, you know that. You're probably not. Kim Barlow wonders if CDC gave Trump bad advice. No, I don't think so at all, and it doesn't matter anyway. Trump loves to toot his own horn about how he's builds the great teams. Here's the bottom line. He's president of the United States, period. Buck stops right there. It might not stop there in his mind, but in my mind, he had the authority to do it all. He doesn't have the authority to make people not go to work around the United States. I mean, they can still do it. but he certainly had the authority to ground all the flights. He had the authority to do a lot of stuff, especially declaring a national emergency. He could have done a lot of things that he didn't do. It's too late. It's too late. At this point, I've been saying since, I don't know, was it late January or very, very early February, that we're already too late for containment. I was saying that back when people were like, it's still just the flu. Remember? Remember when half the comments were like, it's just the flu. Why are you getting excited? And I'm like, you don't understand what this thing is. You know what I mean? Like, you don't understand. Like when people like me were warning about Al Qaeda way back when, and people are like, ah, you're just whatever. And we're like, you don't understand what they are. We must kill them. It's too late now. There you go. And it's the same with this virus. This should have been crystal clear. Fauci wrote something in 2017, I believe, saying that, President Trump would face some pandemic during his tenure because they all do. I mean, a lot of people seem to think pandemics are uncommon and they don't happen very often. Like the last one was 1918, they'll say. It's completely untrue. Pandemics happen all the time. There's other pandemics going on right now. They're just not this serious, right? They're not as earth-shattering as this one. But pandemics are quite common. And every once in a while, you get the perfect storm. I mean, this one could be worse, but it's pretty doggone bad. Yeah, I mean, like Georgine said, Madigan Stoner, Trump stopping flights from China is tantamount to closing a window on a sinking ship. Okay, let's not get excited about him saying he closed flights from China. He closed flights from Hubei province, right? He left most of China open. And then he closed later. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you've ever been to China, but I've been quite a lot. And it's like you can just get on one of those bullet trains and they're super comfortable and just shoot yourself a few hundred miles away and go get on another flight. Shutting flights from Hubei for people like me, and there's a lot of us who've traveled around China, we know what that meant. That was equivalent to shutting flights from California and saying you shut off America. Nope. Because you've still got flights coming directly from New York. I bet you there's flights directly from New York to Beijing, if not one stop. Anyway, is there direct flights from Beijing to New York? Probably. Anyway, if not, maximum one stop. Probably nonstop. You could check it instantly. But, I mean, everything was... So we shut Hubei province, and we left all of Europe and everywhere else open to come to America. It was completely idiotic. It made no, for those of us who travel a lot, we're like, huh? It was like, that makes no difference. Only for the people that, listen, there's two types of Trump derangement syndrome. There's two variants. There's two strains of this virus. There's Trump love and Trump hate, right? Trump derangement syndrome has the L strain and the H strain, one for love and one for hate. And the people that have got the L strain of Trump derangement syndrome will just take anything he says and say, that's what the master said. It must be okay. And here you go, right? Now we're watching the economy melt down. It didn't have to be this way. That's what Chris Martinson says. Actually, I was saying that back when as well. And it's like, here we are. I mean, it is this way now. You can't undo it. It's too late. There's basically wildfires burning all around the United States, Mexico, South America, Canada, everywhere. It's too late. That's why I keep saying stock up on your food. Stock up now. I've been saying since January, get to your hard point. Go to where you want to weather this storm. Get there now. Many people are not going to get there now. It's too late. And it's been too late for some people for a while. I see the United States government, they put out something else again today. We're going to do everything we can to get Americans back home. And Americans complaining like, the United States government hasn't done a thing for me. It's funny, the other day I was thinking about, I might need to get back to America if it goes really, really badly in America. And then I thought, well, how am I going to get back? And, it never even crossed my mind to call the embassy. Why would I call the U.S. government to help? They screw up freaking everything. I mean, I'll get back on my own somehow. I don't need the damn Air Force to come get me, right? I don't mean to say damn Air Force. I love the Air Force, but I don't need the government to come rescue me. You know what I mean? Maybe if Al Qaeda gets me, I'd like to see some Delta Force. But I mean, but at the same time, I don't even think to call the embassy. Why would I call them? You know what I mean? I'm just like, get back somehow else. You know, take a freighter. You know what I mean? Might take a month out to sea or something. You have to be a cook. Let's see. Dennis Stahl, for how many weeks, months would you suggest to stock up on food? That depends on your situation. For instance, are you way out in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska? And there's, you know how many ducks you guys got in Nebraska and wildlife on the hoof galore, right? I mean, fish, you got everything. You know what I mean? It depends on your situation. If you're in a great situation and you know how to, like if I lived way out in the boonies in Nebraska, I would be like, what do I need? I need enough gas for cooking. You know what I mean? Because I'll go out and, I could take care of myself in a place like that. But if you live in New York City, if you live in a highly, high population density place, or you don't know how to kind of take care of yourself, I would say minimum 4 months. 4 months food and water and anything else that you need. Now, I've been saying since January, get your pharmaceuticals now. It's too late for a lot of people. India has cut us off. They've cut us off. And remember, almost all the active pharmaceutical ingredients, even the ones that are used in medicines in India, they come from China. China can cut us off completely. China can cut off. So if you're dependent for your life on some drugs, China owns your life right now. Because our government, the United States government, over years, since Kissinger times, have brought so much of our industry from our incredible country over and put our fate into the hands of the Chinese Communist Party. And Xi's disease, the guy that runs that place, he is like Hitler. A lot of people don't get that. He is literally worse than Hitler. A lot of people don't get that. They don't understand it. That how bad they are. They've already threatened to cut off our pharmaceuticals. United States does not make any penicillin. United States does not make many of the most important drugs. Like if you're going to go get some kind of important surgery and you need certain incredible drugs, they own you. They own you. That's right. Because our government. And this is the government that did not allow us to stockpile, they did not stockpile masks. And state by state, has any state come out and said, we got to stockpile a mask because we knew this was coming? Why did I have masks? Why did Michael Yon, why did I have masks? I had masks for years. I bought 600 more masks in January to give out to people in Hong Kong and Thailand. And that's what I did. I gave out I kept a few more that I'm sprinkling out here and there as people need them. I didn't give them all out. I gave almost all out. I got maybe, 40 or something left. And I'm just sprinkling them out to people as that I come across that really need them. In our country, we have a CDC here. CDC is in Atlanta, right? That's Atlanta. CDC, right there in Atlanta. Right by, CNN's in Atlanta. Why didn't CDC or the National Institutes of Health or DOD, Department of Defense, why didn't any of these clowns raise the alarm earlier that we don't have PPE, we don't have masks? Look, let me show you something. I'll be right back. Just a second. Hey, Barney. Right. Why is it that I have Tevex suits and yet our doctors and nurses don't have them? And these aren't hoarding. This isn't from some shortage. I didn't take these off of somebody. I got them back when they were cheap because it's common damn sense. Tevek suit. That's life and death suit right there. Tevek suit. Tevek suit. With booties, of course. They all have booties. Tevek suit. I bought 600 of these in January. Gave them out because I use these. I use this kind. That's what our government has done. That's what they've done. They have set the United States up for complete failure and utter failure and potential civil war within the United States. It's unbelievable. We need to make some changes, and I mean some serious changes, and not put up with bullshit and lying presidents or whoever they are. And one after another, not just Trump, but a whole series of presidents, starting with Nixon, has facilitated them to own us. And people like me and Al Johnson and Maura Moynihan and Steve Bannon, who have been ringing the alarm for a long time, and a lot of military officers and a lot of other people who've been ringing the bell. They always call us crazy. Their 50-cent army comes after us. Like, for instance, when I bring up the comfort women issue in Japan, and people are like, oh, Japan bought you. It's like, nope. Comfort women issue with the World War II sex slave bullshit. This is all part of a Chinese information war, period. That's why I was bringing it up. Why would I bring up stuff like that? You think I care about comfort women bullshit from World War II? No. A lot of people got very angry with me, saying, oh, you're bought by Japanese. You're part of their... No. I was fighting China, and they used Korea as part of their game. Anyway, long story. We can talk about that for... Again, I could teach a university course. I've done 3 books on it. Here's my last book on Chinese information war in Japanese language. It came out about a month ago. I don't think it's going to sell very well because, we got this virus going on. But if you speak Japanese, go to Amazon.jp and buy it. That's me when I was more handsome in one of the wars. Listen, this information war, China is really good at it. They've been now blaming the United States. Of course, as I said they would, because look, I've written 3 books on Chinese information war, right? I know what they're going to do before they do it. They're going to blame the United States and they're going to blame Japan because that's what they always do. They always blame the United States and they always blame Japan, period. I went to Nanjing, right? I went over to Nanjing. They got a museum there for the Nanjing massacre. Everybody's heard of that. And Iris Chong, Iris Chong, the famous Rape of Nanjing author. I don't think she wrote the book, quite frankly. I think it was done under the guidance of a man named Ignatius Ding in Cupertino, California. That's what I think, and I can support that. I don't know that that's truthful, but there's a lot of evidence. Let's put it that way. And, she's dead. She shot herself in the head. I wonder if she did it out of depression for the incredible lies that she told. Now, people read the book. They're like, oh, I was crying reading the Rape of Nanjing. You should, because if you believed it, it was the rape of your mind because it was bullshit. The book it's an information operation. She got recruited at a speech when Iris Chong got recruited at a speech at Yale or Harvard or someplace when they were out giving speeches about the Rape of Nanjing. And Iris Chong said she was watching it and she started crying. Ignatius Ding must have been like, that's our girl right there. Very beautiful Chinese face. She's American. And her dad was a Chinese physicist and her mother was a molecular biologist, and they met in Taiwan and moved to America, but they were mainlanders, and then had her. So she's American, Iris Chong. And then Iris Chong got recruited. I don't even think she spoke Mandarin, actually, because every time I ask a lot of people in her circle, did she actually speak Chinese? And everybody's always evasive when you bring that up. And I've never seen her speak Chinese. But the way they sell her is like, oh, she understood all this stuff. She didn't understand jack squat. She grew up in America just like I did. She didn't know anything more than I did. She just had an Asian face. She was American as I was. And anyway, long story short, United States got suckered in by China. And I'm going to tell you what, I love India. Been there 10 months, right? Don't kid yourself. Don't kid yourself. Do not fall for it in India like we did in, I want to have close relationships with India, very close, but don't kid yourself. You'll get the same sort of voodoo coming from India that we got from China. Believe me. Oh, believe me. But we need really, and I want close relations with China too, just not the Chinese Communist Party. And we've got to pull all this manufacturing out of China, and it's going to be messy, to say the least. Yeah, 2 years from now, I'll be known as Paul Revere, maybe. I've been Paul Revere quite a few times on different things: Iraq Civil War, issues in Afghanistan, information war from China that's targeting Japan and Korea, and it goes on and on and on. But I feel like the Cassandra, right? Always, it's not because I'm brilliant. It's because I actually focus and study things 7 days a week, and then if I'm unsure about something, I don't open my mouth, right? Or at least I'll caveat it like I'm unsure about something, but I'm sure enough that I'll mention it now at some point. But when it comes to things like this about the virus in January, and I shifted from total focus on the Hong Kong insurgency over to the virus, I didn't do that without having, a real strong sense that we were going to be facing the event of all of our lifetimes. This is probably the most significant chain of events in the entire human history. This is, if it keeps going the way that it is now, finally people are starting to compare it to World War II, but I will expand it beyond that. If it continues the way it goes now, that's a big if it continues to go on this trajectory, this will be the most significant event in human history, to my knowledge. And I read a lot of history. I don't know of anything that'll come close. Certainly not World War II, and World War II was profound, and so was World War I, and so were a lot of other things like the Black Death, which made huge changes. Let's see. Steve Hayes is saying, any evidence to say where the virus has come from, market or biolab? What's the latest? I'm kind of running silent on that because obviously conspiracy theories are a dime a dozen and we can all come up with stuff ourselves. Keeping in mind, if you know any, say, veterinarians, or like my sister's a veterinarian, when she was in vet school, they taught her about the fresh markets in China specifically. And I've read about him before, over and over. There's one guy in Thailand, what's his name? He's American, I think. And all he's done for years is like go to fresh markets and warn, and he's a Cassandra as well. Insofar as he's been warning us crystal clear. Maybe you can find him. I had to find him online. Maybe fresh market, pandemic, Thailand or something. But what's his name? But anyway, he's gone around for years and he's been warning people. And you could see him recently, and you could just see the look on his face like I tried to warn you, and now this. Let's see. I'm trying to answer questions here. Thank you for what you do about the comfort women issue. I know you aren't doing it for the honor of our ancestors, but you're doing it for the safety of America. Besides, this is what we Japanese should have done ages ago. Yeah, I was meeting with some distinguished Japanese in a private meeting one time, including Yoshiko Sakurai, right? And it's famous that we know each other, right? And not in necessarily a good way. And we're not friends or anything like that, but we've talked and communicated quite a lot. Anyway, I told her and her distinguished group of people at one point, I was very clear. I said, I'm not doing this. I told her, and her group of people. I'm not doing this for the honor of Japan. I'm not doing it to defend your ancestors. That's up to you to do, right? Although I can clearly see that your ancestors are not guilty of this crime. All of our ancestors and us are guilty of a lot of crimes, but not that one. And I was very clear that this is a global and national security issue, and that's why I'm interested. And so I was just making very clear. I don't want you to be disappointed that I'm not going to be defending Japanese honor. But I will be defending it as a consequence. That, in revealing the truth about why this comfort women issue is just an information war. It's just it's interesting when I talk with American military officers about this, serious business people anyway, people that actually have to deal in real numbers, people that have to move stuff from A to B, they usually get it quite quickly. Although one retired naval officer, retired intelligence guy, he got really upset when I was telling. I actually lost respect for him because he was so brainwashed. I'm like, and you're a famous intelligence officer. He actually had problems in the Navy, and he kind of had to leave. And now I can see why actually, because it wasn't open for actually. Anyway, bottom line is, real military officers, especially ones who've been to war, when you say, let's say it's World War II, would you have time to kidnap 200,000 women during the middle of a war when you don't have enough bullets and food to feed your soldiers, and you're completely defensive? You're losing thousands of people per day sometimes, and then there's this allegation that you're kidnapping 200,000 women and shipping them all over the place for sex slaves. And all of them will be like, yeah, actually, now come to think of it, that doesn't make sense, does it? Yeah, no, it doesn't, does it? It doesn't make sense. Let's see, Andrew. The only thing not adding up to me are the videos surfacing outside New York City hospitals. No panic, or I don't know what the rest of your comment is. Lisa is saying, we gave PPE. Oh, then your comment shot up. We gave China PPE in January, right? There were some reports. And also Thailand. It wasn't a lot, but we did. I don't know how much we gave to China. But what we gave to China was, to Thailand was not very much. Tommy says, dude, I was going to post the vid of the, anyway, getting back to the whether this came from the P4 lab or from Fresh Market, or, was it a bioweapon? I don't know. I mean, it could have been a bioweapon that was accidentally deployed, not purposefully. I mean, sometimes people make mistakes. I mean, it literally could have leaked from the lab, right? It could have been that. Or it could have literally just come from it could have really come naturally. I'm not a scientist, so I can't look at what all the technical details and say one way or the other. All I can do is listen to a lot of experts talk and try to figure out, using my BS sensors, which ones I think are telling the truth. For instance, Jerome Adams, the U.S. Surgeon General, he knows a lot more about medicine than I will ever know. He is the Surgeon General of the United States. He's the top doctor in America. And he's clearly a bullshitter. He clearly lied about the masks, that, people shouldn't wear masks. He absolutely lied. So, and as soon as he said that, I was just like, whoa, okay. So at this point, he's out. So that's the same way I'll be judging these people the experts, when they talk about whether this is a bioweapon or not. I'll be, obviously educating myself up to the highest level that I can reasonably do on it, while looking at everything else that's going on and trying to figure out who I think is telling the truth, or first of all, knows the truth and tells the truth. But let's see. I mean, it's going to take time, I think, to figure that out. Yeah, like Tommy Barrios says, the Japanese military would have never wasted their resources on the comfort of their troops. Yeah. I mean, The idea that they kidnapped 200,000 women and shipped them all over the Pacific and whatnot is just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And then as soon as you raise the flag, they'll come out and go, "Oh, you're just a xenophobe bigot. You're whatever. And which they did, of course. And then I just take the punches and keep rolling. But now the world can see how much China lies. They can see it more clearly because of what's just happened. This is going to affect everybody watching this. Most of us probably are going to know somebody that dies if it continues on this trajectory anyway. And so, there you go. Steve Hayes says there's stuff in those markets that would make Rambo puke. Yeah, I've seen some of it. It's pretty bad. I've been in those sorts of markets in China, here in Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, other places. Yeah, quite a lot. Robert Anderson saying there was a scientific paper published in 2007 that made the case that SARS-CoV virus would reemerge. Said there was a reservoir of different viruses living in bats in that region of China. We now have SARS-CoV-2, Xi's disease, as predicted in 2007. Here's the link. Or CCP virus. CCP virus is nice. That's what some people are calling it. Epoch Times calls it that. Steve Bannon calls it that. I like CCP virus. I also like Xi's disease. But I will not be calling it COVID-2. That's a political name that, they've made COVID to be, it's a politically devised name by China, feeding it through World Health Organization that we need to defund. Defund and defang. Let's see. All right. If there's, I'm just shooting to the bottom. If there's not any immediate fresh questions, I'll go ahead and shut off because it is 3 a.m. here, and I do need to know if John Batchelor needs me to come on in the morning. Maybe he's, if he does, I need to study up on a few more things before I go to bed. I want to thank everybody for supporting my work with PayPal and Patreon and Venmo and Zelle and my Japanese and Thai bank accounts. And huge thanks. I need it. And Lois says, I've just now been educated on the wet market. I'm not surprised, but pretty disgusted. You won't believe it. And when you go there, as you know, our sense of smell can be our most emotive sense, our olfactory sense, right? Out of all of our senses, whether it's sight or whatever, it's smell that can really overwhelm you. And when you go into some of these markets and there's the sights and the smells are so dense, thick smells, and just the agony and pain that some of these creatures are in, and it's just like the way they're treated, and man, it's horrific. This is Mother Nature's revenge. I mean, some people say that, like here, the air is so polluted in Thailand, in China, and India. You won't believe how polluted the air is around here. It is, look on the air pollution index. You can look it up right now on mine. You will not believe how polluted it is. It is fantastic. That's why you can hear maybe in the background, I got an air filter running. Maybe you can hear it. I've tried to tune it out with this microphone. But the air is so pathetic. Farmers, millions, burn their fields every year, and then the factories that don't have, the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency in the United States, can be a real pain. We know it. But let me tell you what, if you could look inside my memories for just like 30 seconds, you would go, okay, let's don't throw the EPA out that quick. You know what I'm saying? You're like, we need to get them under control, but we need some EPA. You know what I mean? If you traveled around with me to so many parts of the world, you would be like, we need some EPA. Because you know where it's really clean? Right here in Europe. And look at our air in the United States and Canada. If you look on the air quality index, it's just one thing. Then there's other pollution. When you look down in Mexico, some of that air is super polluted. You look over in Asia, like right here in Chiang Mai, right where I'm at, right where I'm sitting, is often the most polluted air in the world, right here where I'm sitting. It's unbelievable. I don't mean 30 miles away. I'm talking right here. It's unbelievable. And and there's not even a lot of industry around here. It's mostly agriculture at sometimes of the year. It's pathetic. That's why you've never, like, when it comes to the global warming issue and the climate change, there may be actually some man-made climate change. I'm not saying that there's not actually. I actually am suspicious that there may be actually. But my question, I know that it's being used to try to basically rob the United States. I know that that's what it's being used for, and they're using every psychological. Countries like India and China are like, oh, we should get a break because we're developing countries. Don't tell me you're developing countries. You're putting people in space, man, or you're putting stuff in space anyway. Chinese are putting people in space. I mean, you've got all kind. You're not. If you've got discretionary money, I know India's doing a lot with private money, but it's if you're no, I don't buy this because I know what'll really happen. What'll really happen is the United States will start throwing out trillions of dollars and a lot of other things, and you guys will keep polluting, and you'll never pay up, and you'll never clean up. Never. If we're going to clean up this world, the United States, when we rebuild our economy after the destruction that we brought by empowering these criminals, and it's going to take years. When we rebuild our economy, and we're going to have to, when we come back to cleaning up Mother Nature again, we need to start doing some tariffs on countries that are polluting Mother Nature, that have wet markets, that have these fresh markets. Years ago, we could have stopped these fresh markets. We could have told countries around the world, if you have fresh markets, these are a threat to humanity. These are a threat to the world economy. Biologists have been telling us this generation after generation. This is nothing new. This is absolutely nothing new. We knew it was real. We should have been telling countries all over the world, if you've got these fresh markets, we're going to put tariffs on you. We're going to do punitive actions so that you can have all of the fresh markets you want. We can't stop that, but what we can do is do other things to make it less comfortable to do business with us. At this point, what difference does it make? At this point, we have to rebuild our economies. Kelly Renee, in Indonesia market I was in, they were selling macaques for about $40 US, bats in cages, civets, and on and on. It's horrific. Lois is saying, and sprays and fertilizers there in Chiang Mai. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we must do something to clean up Mother Earth. But I'll guarantee you, I would not be surprised that if companies in the United States in the next year are saying we need to relax EPA standards in the United States because they're so expensive. And I would not doubt it, with so many people out of work, that we suddenly, when I was a kid, a lot of America was quite dirty. And then it got cleaned up. I would not be surprised that if 5 or 10 years from now, the United States has significantly more dirty air. I'm just guessing. I would not be surprised because there's going to be economic pressure to make it easier and cheaper for companies to manufacture. I would not doubt that at all, and that will be a huge tragedy because I am sort of a tree hugger myself. People look down on tree huggers, but I'm I love the woods. I love pristine forest and streams you can just drink right out of. Justin Baumgartner, I just got an emergency alert stating all at-risk individuals need to stay indoors. At risk of what? You mean air pollution? Where are you at? Okay. All right, Tommy. And all right. I'm scrolling up looking for any questions. There may be some way up there, but there was a lot that were flying by really fast. Rachel looks finical. I'm trying to pronounce your name. Is saying have not been able to eat meat since seeing video of a wet market. Yeah, yeah. I've heard people say stuff like that before, and uh, and actually, like when I've been in some parts of Asia and I see stuff like that, it makes me actually not want to eat meat as well because it's just the cruelty to the animals, and I won't eat meat from animals that you know what I mean. I was just like, I mean, I'll eat meat, but I don't want to eat meat that may have come from one of those fresh markets. But I tell you what, after seeing some of this stuff, you can see why some people become vegetarians. All right. Let me, I don't see any more questions down here. Angel Valley Gardens modifications, warming. Let's see. Imran was Kazmi. Michael, you know a lot. I really respect you and do so many of my friends. Tell me, is this a bioweapon? I don't know. I don't know, Imran. I do not know. I do not know. And it's going to take time to sort out. Right now, I'm not really focused a lot on that because there's this thing unfolding. You know what I mean? There's this massive monster walking through cities all across the world right now, smashing New York right now. It's about to smash a lot more cities across the United States, Europe, and Asia as well. And so we'll definitely circle back to that later because it's important. It's a very important question, and we need to know the answer to it. But it needs to be triaged itself. Lois says, "Get some sleep, Michael. When might you be live again?" It's 3:00. I would say probably within 12 hours. Angel, probably within 12 hours. Oh, hello in Alabama. What was the alert for in Alabama, though? What was it? Was it? Can't be for the air. You guys got good air in California. I mean, not California, Alabama. And is it for the virus? I mean, you definitely shouldn't be going out. Oh, it's about the CCP disease. Okay, Justin, because I know you got good air in Alabama. Alabama's a great state. Alabama borders Florida right here, because that's Alabama right there. A lot of good soldiers come from Alabama. And see, over here is one of the outbreaks. Well, it's going to hit all of us. Everybody's going to get hit in the United States. You're not going to, in Thailand too. A lot of Thailands are still cocky, like a lot of Americans were about 2 weeks ago. And I keep telling Thais, my friends, I'm like, don't get cocky. You're dealing with a virus here. It's smarter than you are. It's smarter than anybody you know. It's smarter than all of us put together. You know what I mean? It's look what it's doing. Don't be in the face of Mother Nature. A little humility goes a long way. You need to just beware. Mother Nature is brilliant, and she is heartless. Jan Benning is saying, Congress is trying to pass digital currency, don't you? They've been talking about it for years. And yeah, but I think ultimately it will come. I think it will come. We already use a lot of digital currency. Credit cards, like when I buy things off of Amazon, like I need to buy something for my computer stuff soon, a green screen so I can show you pictures behind me. That's another $2,000, not for the green screen, but for this other lighting and stuff. But when I buy it, it'll be with credit card, right? That's digital currency. So, I mean, Jan, I get where you're going to on that. It means they'll be able to track all of us. Now, it also comes down to on how we go into it. Will it be a trackable digital currency or a non-trackable digital currency? And we know how our government operates. It will somehow, they'll do the best they can to make it trackable so they know everything that you did, where you did it, and when you did it. I get where you're going at with that. And I think that we are going to face a digital currency in the future. We already have it. But it needs to be it needs to be anonymous. That's where the real battleground is. Whether or not it's coming. The digital currency is coming. I don't know how we're actually going to stop it ultimately. Um, but I get where you're coming from and your concerns. Ever since I was a kid, people have talked about that with great concern. And back then it seemed weird to me. And like, I thought they were acting kind of crazy. But it's very serious. All right. Um, Tony is saying the figures out by the CCP are being gobbled up by the press in the UK as if they are real. I doubt we will ever get the full figure. That said, at least Trump is calling them out with, listen, yeah. So even Johns Hopkins publishes every day the Chinese figures. And it's funny because people go, well, here's the Chinese figures. I know they're not true, but, well, look, the United States has got more than anybody in the world now. It's like, you don't know that. Well, I mean, I know I knew, people that have studied up enough over the years. I mean, I'm not a epidemiologist or a virologist, but I've read enough books and talked to enough smart people that I realize I know what a tsunami is. I can't mathematically model a tsunami or predict it or predict how big it might be and that sort of thing. But I know what a tsunami is. You know what I mean? And I knew it. I've studied this enough for over the years that I realized it was coming. And we know CCP lies. Remember, I have written 3 books on Chinese information war. So the idea that China is, telling the truth on this is just like laughable. Dobry wieczór, Ivona, in Poland. I hope everything's good. Dobry wieczór means good evening in Polish. Or actually, this is a little bit later than that here. I hope everything's good in Poland. I hope y'all, as you know, Poland's going to get hit in your major cities, like obviously Warsaw and Łódź, and all those cities are going to get hit. Just y'all need to stay home. Justin Baumgartner says, the unofficial state motto of Alabama is, at least we're not Mississippi. Oh my gosh, man. I can imagine how many fights have happened on your state lines. I think you have to be from our part of the country to get where he's coming from with that. Ivona's saying Poland, it's getting worse. I know it's going to get worse. There's no question about it. Poland's going to get hit. Poland's going to get hit hard. I mean, you've got 40 million people, which, Italy's got about 60 million. Your 7 big cities, I'm sure, are going to get hit pretty hard. Yeah, I wish I was in Poland now as well. No, it's not in English, Jan. Not in English. But I actually, I'm going to get one of my Polish friends on the line. Actually, I need to shoot a message when we get off. I need to shoot a message to Poland. I want to talk to some of my Polish friends that I've known for some years and ask them what's going on over there. But I have a lot of very, very positive feelings towards Poland due to just quite a few things. But I've had a good relationship with Polish people for many years. Let's see. Put Jamarn is saying, I find the situation quite hard to swallow when I see lots of people in need of face mask, hand body soap, but do not have them, while lots of vendors are selling them at high prices. Hospital need those items the most and not even have them. My aunts walked in and out of the hospital and saw the shortages. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And everybody had the opportunity for years to stock up on this stuff. And the few masks I have left, I give them out to specific people that I see that, that I think need them. Like I gave a couple to a couple old people a couple days ago, that sort of thing. But I don't have many left either. I mean, I've got plenty for me, but I had plenty for me going into it. Uh, and everybody should have. I understand why the average person didn't have plenty. But for me, who watches national security issues and who pays attention to scientists and infectious disease experts and physicists talking about asteroid strikes or something like that. I pay attention to when they talk. I'm listening, and so I was already prepared for it. But our countries should have been prepared. I understand why individuals might not be, but our countries should have been prepared. Kevin says, when do I plan on coming back to the United States? This year, sometime this year. Uh, I mean, I want to see this go through Thailand first because I don't want it. There's people here I need to guard, and I don't want them to be left alone. Otherwise, I would be back in America already. But I would be leaving some people high and dry here if I punch out. So it's just morally the wrong thing to do. SB says, report that whatever the deaths are in China, I'm sure they're significantly larger than anything that they've said. Hey, in Davenport, I've been through Davenport so many times, Davenport, Florida. Y'all need to be prepared. You got lots of lakes up there, so you can get you some water, but make sure you've got lots of food. I would say get a good 4-month supply of food. Because here's something else I want to say about Florida, and another reason why I keep warning to stock up on food and that sort of thing. As you know, this side, a lot of people have just come down to Florida from up north, escaping the virus, right? Because we know these things happen. Anytime there's pandemics, famines, wars, there'll be a mass of people move. They move around, right? So now supply chains of people, huge numbers of people coming to Florida, that's going to be more people out there picking off the grocery stores and that sort of thing, right? More people draining the electrical and water resources, right? And so that's why, for all these reasons, so many reasons, get stocked up now while you still can, if you're in a place that you can do it. For starters, you don't want to be going out shopping. Shop online if you can. Some of my friends in Florida now are saying it's hard to even get a lot of stuff online right now. But even if it is, go ahead and order it. And because there's still a lot of supplies in the United States, they just might not be where you're at. But just go ahead and order them online if you have to. Ivona is saying in Poland, our prime minister has just said that more restrictions are inevitable to be introduced tomorrow. Oh, they should have done them last month. They should, and y'all need to pay attention to them. I know Polish people are like Americans. You get hard-headed and you want to go out and just be Polish. It's like, Italians want to be Italians. Polish are the same way. I lived in Poland 2 years, trust me. And y'all be as hard-headed as Americans, and you need to really, don't go to the church. I know everybody wants to go to church. Everybody needs to stay home. This is very serious. And I know a lot of Polish people, my Polish friends are like, Polish aren't taking it seriously. It's like Americans a lot of Americans still aren't taking it seriously. A lot of Thais still aren't taking it seriously. And they're a threat to everybody. Remember, I want to say it again, and remember this. If you don't remember anything else I've said for the last week, remember one thing. The less prepared everybody is around you, the more prepared you must be. The less prepared everybody else is, the more prepared you must be. And that goes for national scale as well. For instance, when countries are now, like different countries are trying to build up their food stocks, right? Because they don't want to have rebellions and wars and that sort of famines inside of their countries. So food prices will go up because countries are now competing against each other to build up their own stocks. So national level hoarding will occur, right? Or if you want to call it hoarding or stocking up. So food prices are not going to go down from here, right? They're only going to, at best, stay the same. That's hard to imagine. Almost certainly, in most places, food prices are going to go up, right? Almost certainly. And almost certainly, there's going to be many economic problems, like millions of people out of work that were gainfully employed last month and making big time money. Now they don't have a job. That and the United States government will be printing money, inflation, right? So food prices going up, inflation going up, people out of work, stock up now. This is the cheapest you're going to get food is right now. This is the time. This is the time. Yeah, Christina, here in Florida, it's spreading like wildfire, and it's been 80 plus. Yeah, and I was just checking Winter Haven today. I'm from Winter Haven, Florida, but I used to live up in Gainesville area too. I love Florida. The only problem with Florida is it doesn't have a single mountain. You know, if Florida just had just one mountain, it would be a perfect state, but it doesn't. It's all it's got. No mountains and not even a hill. Florida doesn't even have a hill. Can you imagine an entire state this big without a single hill? It doesn't even have a hill. If you ever see a photo, sometimes people send me photos like, oh, look at this Florida. I'm like, that's not Florida. There's a hill. If you ever see a photo, because people will send me stuff, oh, look what Florida man's doing, because, you know, Florida man that does crazy stuff. You know, it's a kind of a joke, but it's kind of true. And they'll send me photos, and I'm like, that's not Florida, or some video. I'm like, Florida doesn't have snow-covered mountains. Florida doesn't have snow-covered anything, except unless it's in your freezer. Western North Carolina, Ann says, is where it's at. Mountains galore. I love Western North Carolina. One thing I love about I spent a couple of years up there. One thing I love about Western North Carolina is just the smells. Like when you really get out in the hollows, you know, like with the creeks coming down, smells so good, man. It smells like you just want to bottle it. You know what I mean? Like you could sell that smell. It's better than any air freshener. Air fresheners suck. But the smell of Western North Carolina up in like Cataloochee and that stuff by the creeks, man, just thinking about it. Yep, Florida is definitely flatter than a cookie sheet. Peggy Pete says, Trump needs to put full military on our southern border, tanks and all. If there gets to be a run on the border, yeah. Netherlands, Michael. I don't know what you're asking, Leah. I've been to Netherlands several times, but Netherlands is going to have a huge problem too. See, here's another problem that Netherlands and other countries are going to have. First of all, they screwed up for starters, just like the United States did. But across the United States, a lot of people don't have any idea how our country works. All of our states have their own rights, right? We've got the federal government here in Washington, D.C., and then we've got all of our 50 states have governments, right? They've all got their own governments. And that's why you can have a state like California pass emission laws. And since California has like 40 million people, which is like as many people as Poland has, like 40 million, right? But the economy in California, that would be literally one of the most powerful economies in the world if they weren't governed by people that just destroy their economy. But when they pass something like emission laws for vehicles or something like that, their market is so big that it can affect the whole rest of the country. In other words, let's say a manufacturer says, well, we have to change the way we manufacture because if we want to access the California market, then we have to change something, catalytic converters or something. I don't know. I just made that up. But and then they'll change the whole manufacturing process for the whole country because it makes more economic sense to do that. But what I'm getting to is we have many different governments within the United States and many different sets of laws, right? And so it's not Trump that's shutting everything down. Trump has the power to shut down flights coming and going and domestic flights. He has the power to do a lot of stuff. He is the president. But we got 50 governors, right? And these governors also have a lot of power. The governor of Florida, if Florida was a country, it would probably have one of the biggest economies in Europe. I'm actually sure of that. If Florida was a country, I'm quite sure it would have one of the biggest economies in Europe. We've only got like, I don't know, 22 million people, something like that. Not many, but this is a powerhouse state right here. It's not got a lot of people, maybe 22 million if I think I'm right. Maybe I don't remember. And but it's a very powerful economy. And so our governor can shut the border, Florida. He can shut it. He can shut flights coming into Florida. He can say, yeah, flight shut. You know what I mean? He can do it just like that. And he's got his own army called the National Guard, right? So he can call up the National Guard and he can put them on the border. Or he can take the highway patrols, or he can take the FDLE, which is the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. He can put them right there on the border, right? He can say, close the border. And President Trump can say, open your border. And the governor can say, well, the governor and President Trump, I think, get along quite well. But let's say the governor of Florida, DeSantis, let's just say that he didn't like the president. He could say, no. In fact, I'm going to keep my border closed, and all the New Yorkers, even if they have homes or whatever down here, they're not crossing our border, period. He could do that. He could do that. That's the level of power some of our governors have, right? And then Trump could say, if you don't open your border, I will send the U.S. Army down and we'll go through the Florida National Guard like, a hot knife through butter. See, that's how we got the Civil War. Remember that? That's how we got the Civil War. Well, states' rights. Different states saying, no, we're not going to do, we're pulling out, right? See, and this is something that Steve Bannon's been bringing up recently, and I have as well. This whole thing can cause a lot of internal problems in the United States, just like similar with China. China has similar internal issues with different parts of the country being their own fiefdoms, right? It's different, but and I'm not an expert on China, but they have internal differences as well. And there's people there that would love to run off with their own stake of power. And we've got that in Florida, although I don't know any states. I don't know, Texas obviously talks sometimes about splitting off, and Hawaii does sometimes. But, some Hawaiians. Actually, I think there's a Chinese information war going on in Hawaii. I think that the Chinese, and Al Johnson and I'll get him on sometime. We've been talking about that for some years. We sense that there is some rabble rousing going on in Hawaii from Chinese. From Chinese Communist Party. There's a lot of, let's say there's a lot of signs and symptoms. But yeah, and so a lot of people don't realize this. So all these 50 states here, any governor out there can close their borders at any time. And they can say, they can close the highways. They can say, I want a checkpoint every 10 miles. And if they got enough troops and police to do it, and they do, they could close the highways every 10 miles, every exit ramp, they could deploy their troops anywhere they want. So I'm very proud of Army veterans, by the way, that are joining. I think 9,000 or something have answered the call to volunteer to return. Are they returning to active duty to help in this crisis? I knew they would. That's our people. Let's see. Click on Rick saying Trump was just saying that hospital masks might be going out the back door. They are asking for 300,000 from only. Oh, I'm sure they are. Yeah, Netherlands is flat as a board. Alaska. I've never been to Alaska, Jan. I'm getting up there. Bye, Robert. Or you're probably gone by now. Hope you have a good day or night wherever you're at. Kevin saying, PM me, I can help you purchase a firearm, Second Amendment. Oh, when I get back to the United States. I got some back there. Let's see. SW says, 3 of my favorite things, Florida, Publix, and Western North Carolina. Yeah, actually, weirdly, I'm totally tracking. You must be like a Florida boy to say something like that. My first job was at Publix when I was 14, by the way. I love Publix. Publix is the best grocery store I've ever been to. There's more than one, but the first one was in Lakeland, Florida. George Jenkins, right, started it. And the second one, I think, was in Winter Haven, where I'm from. Or was the first one in Winter Haven? Anyway, Lakeland, Winter Haven. North Carolina is great. Uh, Susan Grazier saying Jay Malarat, he has severe TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. Remember, there's two types of TDS. There's two strains of it. You know, there's the Trump hate syndrome TDS, and then there's the Trump love syndrome TDS. I'm not sure which one is more intense, but they're both quite intense. Let's see. Texas number one economy is Angel saying. I don't know. And hold on, you have to be careful on. Actually, I'm not. I'm not academically prepared to answer that question. For several reasons. One of which is that's a complex question. Actually, I'm not prepared to answer it in any sense at all. But Texas has a powerful economy. Actually, Jan Benning, is North Carolina hot and humid? That depends. North Carolina is it's got many different climates. I mean, it's got over here on the sea. There's alligators in the southern part of North Carolina, right over here. So I can give you some idea about the weather over there. And then there's got the western North Carolina. It's got the Appalachian Mountains, and so that's totally different ecosystems out there. It's North Carolina is not a simple state. It's actually got a lot of different ecosystems. Ivona saying latest data from Poland. I'll need to check that out when I get offline. SW says I hear they are checking at the Florida border. Yeah, I wonder what good it'll do anyway. What are they going to do? They either what are they going to do? Check your temperature with the little gun thing? I mean, there's no you know what I mean? Yes, Tony. Yes, thank you for pointing out the state and local governments are responsible for state and local issues and actions and request support from the feds. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that about America. They think Trump has power over this, like infinite power over the United States, and he doesn't, which is good. I mean, uh, our system is created to divide power, and it's important. It's very smart. I mean, sometimes we wish somebody would have more power, but ultimately, it's much better to divide it up. Much better, because, for instance, economically, we have states compete against each other. For instance, let's say somebody wants to bring a factory in, and different states will offer, hey, we'll give you, better water deal or something. We'll give you better tax abatement or something. So it makes states compete against each other, which makes our whole economy more robust, right? Now, this is one of the things that what's her name, Ocasio Cortez Lopez or whatever her name is. She was, she was celebrating losing some business up there for not giving a tax abatement. That's an interesting story in and of itself. Let's see. Angel Valley Garden is saying, we do a whole lot of driving in California. Yes, you do. I spent a couple of years there. We have to. Counties, we are in Siskiyou County, Shasta County, and Siskiyou. How do you pronounce that? Siskiyou County. Chances are I've been to it. I've been all over California. Is A-OK with gun shops. The mayor of Los Angeles is not. We have gun shops open for hunting for food. Lisa's saying, I look tired. Actually, I am a little tired, Lisa. I should knock off. Let's see. Megan is saying, so can he stop funding per state like in New York since him and Cuomo don't get along? Well, I mean, he can do a lot of things. I mean, for instance, one of the things that the federal government will do in trying to leverage, authority from Washington is like threaten federal funding for universities or highways or things like that, right? So they've got levers of influence, or many things. There's many things that both can influence each other with, and so it's not. There's a lot of give and take. If somebody asked if my books were written in English, I didn't. I wrote in English and they were translated to Japanese. translated to Japanese. Yeah. I love Japan. I hope Japan doesn't get hit too hard with this. Everybody's going to get hit. It's a matter of if you can slow it down and not be too slammed with it. Okay. Greg Holmes says the National Guard versus U.S. Army is a true point. National Guard is paid for mostly by the DoD as a reserve component. Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, ultimately, for instance, the active guard could be made. I mean, the National Guard can just be brought onto active duty. I mean, the governor has control of the National Guard unless they're. I mean, they can be taken. Certainly, they can. For instance, we had National Guard and reserves all over Iraq and Afghanistan, and they constantly deploy all over the world. And so it's not like So it's hazy. It's not like National Guard for Florida is like just the Florida Army. It's not quite like that, right? It's a little different. All right. Yeah, Fort Bragg is definitely hot and humid. Yeah, I've had sushi from Publix. It is really great. You remind me of that. I would get it over in Archer Road, I think it was, over there in Gainesville. All right, let me go ahead. Oh, Suzanne Grazier is saying, I have a daughter who has severe hate TDS, and I'm getting very tired of her sending me hate posts about Trump in the middle of the night. She sent me a whole lot of pictures at 2 a.m. Yeah, I guess you won't believe it. I must get 100. Oh, it's got to be more than that. I must get 100 a day minimum of both from TDS hate and TDS love. I should just match them up so they can go off and fight each other. It doesn't. I only want truthful stuff. I don't want to, all the propaganda. It's just a waste of everybody's time. Let's see. Robert Herzog, preacher was arrested for holding a service yesterday in which 500 attended. What a clown. Where was he at, Robert? Was that the one in Tampa? If he was arrested, that must have been a different one then. Oh, there's my friend Rodney Morris. Public store number 1 was over at Southeast Plaza in Winter Haven. That's heading towards Havendale. Oh, I know which one you're talking about. Oh, yeah. That's the one where Mike Perry used to work. My cousin, Mike, Mike. And his dad worked there. Let's see. Oh, John Miley, what are your thoughts on the Harvard scientist that was arrested in January working with CCP? Well, if that can be proven, I am not opposed to pulling out the hanging ropes, but it depends on the severity and the proof. I mean, it would have to be like ultra lock solid, super proof, and a super crime to get to that level of punishment. But if was working as a spy for China on something major, and it can be absolutely proven, I would hang him. You know what I mean? But it would have to, even though it's kind of funny because I'm kind of largely against the death penalty, but there's just some things, the what we've gotten ourselves into with China is really going to cost huge numbers of people to die. Donald Belvedere is saying, FYI, in regards to the number 1 economy comment by a viewer, that measurement is based on GDP. It is important to know what is considered when defining GDP. Unfortunately, it includes debts as well. For example, California is often cited as the 5th or 6th largest economy, but some people overlook the fact that it is in tremendous debt. High-speed rail to nowhere. And yeah, see, that's why, Donald, I wasn't even attempting to answer what's the number 1 economy, because there's more to it than just how much money's moving around. There's a lot more to it than that, as you know. Yeah. I wonder if our forefathers, they were definitely genius. And Janice saying they'd be appalled today. I wonder if they would be appalled, because you can tell by what they wrote, what they constructed, that they anticipated all this. You know, they already they had a deep understanding of human nature. That's why they created this system that causes us to, causes us to have to, nobody can run the board. You know what I mean? We don't have a king or something like that. They created it. They really understood human nature. All right. I need to get to bed. Let me see this. Diana Parker Shermer. I want to get to bed, but you guys post so much really interesting stuff. It's hard for me to break away. That's why sometimes I go for like 2 or 3 hours. As soon as I get ready to go off, somebody puts something else up. It makes me want to talk. Let's say Diana Parker Shermer is saying, I live across the street from a church, and this morning they were having a drive-through blessings. Better that than a service. That's actually kind of a clever idea, isn't it? It's America, man. Yeah, Pelosi. Our forefathers were incredibly genius. Yeah, Lois, you're right. I should get to bed. All right, y'all. If I keep reading your questions, I'm going to be up until like the sun comes up. And then John Batchelor's going to call me up. He's going to be like, hey, you were supposed to be on the show. And I'll be like, you said you were going to call. Let me see if he sent any emails. I love the John Batchelor show. I go on there. I've been telling people to get on it for years. And then why won't my email open? Let me see here. Let me try it on this phone. And I'll tell you if he sent me an email about coming on. A lot of other emails. Let's see. Okay. I don't see anything from John. Okay. But the John Batchelor show is very important to listen to now. He's up in New York City. And for those who don't know, some people don't actually realize we have a New York State and a New York City. A lot of people don't realize there's actually, it's like, it's one of those places that has like I'm in Chiang Mai. I'm in Chiang Mai City, but there's also Chiang Mai province. So if you say I'm from Chiang Mai, that tells me what? Chiang Mai City or Chiang Mai province? It's the same in New York. A lot of people don't realize it's New York, New York. I don't know if I'm going to be on the John Batchelor show in the morning or not. It doesn't matter. Whether or not I'm on the John Batchelor show, you should really pay attention to John Batchelor show. It's a fantastic show. I've been listening to it for years. You've probably heard me recommend it a lot. And then last year, when I was in Hong Kong, Gordon Chang came up to me and he was like, hey, do you want to, would you like to come on the John Batchelor show? And I was like, yeah, of course. I can't believe you're even asking. The answer is absolutely yes. And all right. Bye in Poland. Do widzenia. Cześć. Yeah, down with CCP, Lois Stockwell. Bye, Greg. Diana says she lives in New York State, not city. Thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and punch out here. Y'all have a good night or day wherever you're at. Let me see how to turn this thing off. All right. Y'all have a good day. Night. Mike out. In broadcast.